Ryan Brown, J. Ryan Brown Law. Today, we are going to talk about a question I have gotten a few times recently, and that is how a grand jury in Georgia works. So, great question. I was a prosecutor very, very briefly, but have been inside of these grand jury rooms and have presented cases for prosecution to the grand jury. So, I think I can give a little insight into how they work because they are secretive. So, grand juries in Georgia are secretive proceedings where there are 16 to 23 people from the community who meet. And again, they are, you may know the dates publicly, but the public is not allowed to attend these. Most court proceedings in the states and in Georgia are open to the public. The grand jury proceedings are an exception. In these meetings, certain people are allowed, or grand jury proceedings, certain people are allowed. Prosecutors are allowed. Prosecutors' witnesses are allowed. There's usually allowed to be some sort of stenographer or reporter. There can be translators. If a law enforcement officer is the subject of a grand jury proceeding, then they can be present with their lawyer, or their lawyer can wait outside, but that is not common. Most people cannot be there. What surprises people the most is that a grand jury's job is only to determine whether or not there is probable cause to issue an indictment. Probable cause, which is the same standard as whether or not there's enough evidence to arrest someone, is pretty low. It's way lower than the evidence required to convict someone of a crime. So people ask us, hey, this case is going to the grand jury. Surely there's no way that a grand jury will indict me. It's usually not the case. Lawyers are taught that a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich because you have to remember the defense is not allowed to be there. The defense attorney is not allowed to be there. Usually the only witnesses or witness is the lead investigator. So we're talking about a state level routine investigation, routine case. It's usually the prosecutor. It's usually the lead investigator. The prosecutor will generally say, hey, what's your name? Are you an officer? Are you post certified? Tell me what happened. The officer may give a 30 to 60-second spiel on a case, and that's it. You could have a serious armed robbery case, murder case, whatever, and we're talking minutes, if not less, of testimony before someone is considered for an indictment or not. It's also not unheard of for a grand jury to consider multiple cases at a time. So a prosecutor and witnesses may present 2 or 3 cases to a grand jury at a time and let the grand jury vote on all 3 of them before they find out the results. Now, the prosecutors don't stay in the room during the the grand jurors voting. Okay. So that is done in secret. The grand jury is going to have a 4-person and kind of like a secretary type to record this stuff. But that is done even without the prosecutor. Now, with that said, it's much different than a jury trial. Where the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. At a grand jury proceeding, it's only required that it be a majority of the voters, right? So if we're talking 20 people are in the grand jury room, if 11 of them think there's probable cause, that is enough for an indictment. And it's been in the news a lot lately with more famous people being indicted and stuff like that, but it really is not difficult to be indicted. Like if a prosecutor and a law enforcement witness or a lay witness want to indict somebody, they're probably getting indicted. There's very little ways to check the testimony there's no cross-examination of the witnesses, all of those kind of things. It is not challenging to get indicted. Or to get an indictment against someone, I should say. If a grand jury votes that there's probable cause, they return what's called a true bill, and then there will be an arraignment and the court process goes on. If the grand jury does not think there's probable cause, the grand jury will return what's called a no bill. However, that does not always stop a prosecutor. They can present the case to the grand jury at a later time. There are limits on how many times that can happen. But that's how a grand jury works. Takeaways that you should know about a grand jury. It's in secret. The defense cannot be there. There is no opportunity to defend yourself or cross-examine the state's witnesses. It is very quick. We're talking minutes or less on serious cases even to get an indictment. And if a prosecutor wants an indictment on someone, it is daggum near impossible for them to fail at that indictment.